They really fumbled the bag when they left this out of the high school DxD anime. The Sea-Tree vs. Groomery rating game was so fun to read. I guess before I get into this, I would like to give a spoiler warning for anyone interested in reading the high school DxD light novel. If you aren't interested in it, or if you only plan on watching the anime, then this video shouldn't be too bad for you. And of course, if you've already read it, then this video will be alright for you too. Honestly, this video is probably most helpful for those who only care about watching the anime because it fills in the gaps that the anime left. So there's your warning. Let's get into the nitty-gritty details of this volume. So first of all, this volume covers the trip to the underworld, the Kuroka fight, and the rating game between Rias and Sona. I'm going to touch on all of them, but I'm going to mainly be on Rias and Sona's rating game because I think that was the best part, and most of what I want to talk about is there. So let's get into this volume. Almost everything in this volume was really good, but the rating game between Rias and Sona was something special. First of all, before the game even started, they established a goal for Sona, and I think this is one of the best things that they did. During the council meeting, all the young devils are telling the higher ups their plans and goals for the future, and when it's Sona's turn, she talked about her plans to make a school for all devils no matter what class they are in, a school where everyone can learn about the rating game. And when the higher ups hear about this, they start laughing and making fun of Sona, and this really makes you want to root for Sona. Seeing her being laughed at just makes you feel so bad for her. This was done very well in this volume, but after they laugh at her, the whole thing turns into an argument between the higher ups, Saji, Seraphol. Everyone just starts arguing, and so Sir Zex makes Sona and Rias fight in a rating game. Saji standing up to all the higher ups is also a really good moment, and it really shows how much he loves Sona, but I think you see even more of this later in the volume. Sir Zex announcing that he was going to make them do a rating game had me really hyped, and it really puts you in a peculiar situation because you kind of want both sides to win. I really like this because I was going back and forth in my head on who I think should win. Obviously you want Rias' team to win because they're the main team and they're the main characters, but you also want Sona to win because she was just laughed at for having this dream, and her winning this game would make her dream closer to coming possible. Before the game even starts, Azazel says Rias has the upper hand and that she has a way higher percentage chance of winning, but he does still say not to underestimate Sona, and I really feel like this just makes me want to root for Sona even more because she is the underdog. They also explain why Sona is at Kuo Academy so she can study it and then use that for her school she wants to build in the underworld, and I think this was just a nice little thing to add in there because this was something I was kind of wondering, and this explanation makes a lot of sense. They're giving a training period after this, and that's when Issei trains with Tanin. The training with Issei and Tanin was done very well, and I really enjoyed it. The moments with Tanin were just so good, and it really made me like Tanin's character a lot. Issei riding on Tanin's back to the other gathering was just a nice feel-good moment. I think they did a really good job with Tanin in this volume, and the reason he becomes a devil just adds to his likability. He became a devil so he can participate in rating games, which is understandable, but his other reason is what really makes him likable. His type of dragon only lives off these dragon apples, and they went extinct in the human world because of environmental reasons, and in the underworld they have them, but fallen angels and devils don't like dragons, so they always try to highball them. Tanin became a devil and then became an ultimate class devil. Devils above high class get land for free, so Tanin got the land that grew the apples in the underworld, and then he allowed the other dragons to live there. So basically Tanin saved a whole generation of dragons from becoming extinct. He's also developing an artificial fruit so dragons can have a future there. He's like a true dragon king. I'm also glad I got my explanation for why Biko was able to hang with Tanin in the anime. They tell you Tanin is holding back, but they don't really say why, and it's because if he used his power he would destroy everything. So it just makes a lot more sense in that fight that Biko would be able to hang with him. Also, Issei's fire technique that he used in season 4 makes a lot more sense now. I always was so confused by how he was able to use that because he just randomly pulls it out, and for some reason they didn't bother explaining it, so I was always just left wondering how he learned that. And of course he just learned it from Tanin. They could have said that. They didn't even have to show it. They could have just said that he learned the power from Tanin. I don't know why they left that out. They also do a really good job at giving Issei's power limits and restrictions. This just makes so much more sense than in the anime, because in the anime he unlocks Balance Breaker and then he's able to use it however he wants. It's like he just masters it from using it once against Kuroka. It's so weird. But in this volume, he has a time limit and he has a restricted number of boosts that he can use before his armor gives out. It just makes a lot more sense that he wouldn't master it from using it once. And this also makes fights seem more interesting because he can't just boost as much as he wants. I also want to talk about Azazel. Azazel is so good in this light novel. In every volume, he's been the star of the show. I don't think there's a single time where I don't enjoy his presence. A thing I liked in this volume was that Azazel seemed genuinely upset that Volley betrayed him. Issei says there's sorrow in Azazel's eyes after Azazel was talking about the Juggernaut drive and how Volley's able to use it. And I really like seeing this side of Azazel. We don't ever really see him take anything seriously, so this is the first time we've seen him hurt by something. And this was like one of my low-key favorite moments. But I'll make my own separate video on him later in the future. But I really like what they're doing with this character right now. Now I do think the lowest point of the volume is the Kuroka fight, but I don't hate it. I still enjoy it. I just think it's the worst part and the least entertaining. It all pretty much plays out the same as in the anime, but I did notice that Kuroka comes off a lot more evil in the light novel than in the anime. She's just more cruel in the way she speaks. And the way the battle ended was different too. They got interrupted by Arthur, which makes sense because they weren't supposed to be there, so Arthur coming in was a nice little moment. But once the Kuroka fight is over, we get into the main event, the raiding game, and I think this is where this volume really shines. This is my favorite part of volume 5. This raiding game is done so well. There are so many details in it that just make it feel so special, and I'll get into those as we go on. Before the fight even starts, Azazel's giving them advice on what to do, and looking back after reading it, a lot of this advice would have come in very handy during the raiding game. For example, him telling Zenobia not to battle a counter-type fighter. Like I said, I really love how they do Azazel's character in High School DxD. Both anime and light novel. So the raiding game takes place in a shopping mall slash department store, and immediately they set up something to make the fight super interesting, and that's the rule that they can't destroy the department store. This rule just makes the fight so much more interesting because characters like Issei, Rias, Zenobia, and Akeno can't use their full power because they'll end up destroying the store. Also, they ban Gasper's sacred gear because he can't control it, and these conditions just make the battle so interesting. They're given 30 minutes of planning, and during this planning period, we really get to see Rias and Akeno's chemistry. The way they were planning the battle made them look like best friends, and I really like that, especially since they've been together for so long, so it just makes sense they would have this kind of chemistry, and I'm glad they were able to show it. Before the battle begins, Issei goes into a bookstore to read some ecchi magazines, and this creates a good moment between Issei and Akeno. Akeno's able to get her courage to use her true power from Issei, and then a little later, Issei has another even better moment with Koneko, and Koneko's also able to use her true power because of Issei. It really just emphasizes Issei's importance in the group. He motivates every single member to be better and stronger. There's not a single member that doesn't get stronger when he's around, and there's not a single member that he doesn't motivate to be better. And this moment just proves that. So the battle begins and everyone splits up. Issei and Koneko are together, Kiba and Zenobia are together, Rias, Akeno, and Asi are together, and Gasper is on surveillance duty. Saji sneak attacks Koneko and Issei, and he's with Nimura, one of Sona's pawns. And I was so happy to see Saji, because Saji versus Issei is a fight I always wanted to watch. So I'm glad they gave the people the fight that we wanted to see. And they did it early too. And this fight definitely didn't disappoint. Before they even started fighting, Gasper got taken out because Sona's just able to read through Rias' plan. Sona is a complete mastermind in this battle. She's able to predict everything Rias is going to do. They do such a good job with Sona in this battle. She doesn't even have to fight to look strong. She doesn't fight until the very end, but still she looks like one of the strongest characters just from her brain. She's able to trick Gasper and beat him, and Gasper is the first person taken out. And this was actually a shock to me. I wasn't expecting anyone to be taken out that early in the raiding game, so it was a nice shock moment right there. This battle shows Issei and Drake's chemistry. Issei was about to power up, but then Drake stopped him because Saji had one of his lines attached to Issei, and if he would have powered up, Saji would have took his power. And this is just a good way to show that Drake has Issei's back. Issei versus Saji begins, and Saji just has so much heart, it's almost goofy. I mean, this man was not giving up. Converting your own life force into power to win a raiding game is crazy. But like I said earlier, it just makes sense because they were able to set up Sona's goal so early. We saw Sona getting laughed at by the higher ups, and Saji is clearly in love with Sona, so it makes sense that he's willing to do whatever it takes for her, just like Issei was willing to do whatever it takes for Rias. Saji got knocked out by Issei, but he was still holding on to him, and he was still able to keep one of his lines attached to Issei despite being knocked out. It all just shows the fact that Saji matters too. Everyone was looking over him because Issei is the Red Dragon Emperor. He's the next big pawn. But Saji clearly came out to make a statement about himself and his master. This whole thing is just executed well. When done wrong, a moment like this can feel forced. Like it feels like a character has fake heart. To make it not feel forced, you have to set up a goal and a reasoning for a character to have this amount of heart. And they do that very well. My favorite line probably in the entire volume comes from this fight. And it's when Saji said, "We didn't declare our dreams to be laughed at." The amount of pain and emotion emotion conveyed in those 9 lines is just impressive. It really makes you feel for Saji and Sona. And again, this works out because they announced Sona's goal so early and so dramatically. If they would have briefly went through her goal like they did in season 3, none of this would work. It would feel so forced, but they're really able to make Sona's dream feel legit, so it works perfectly. Although I do like the fight, there is a little nitpick I have, and I don't like the way Issei was shoving the fact that him and Saji was similar down our throats. I feel like that should be a show not tell moment for the reader. They just flat out tell the reader that Issei and Saji are similar and then compare it to the Riser situation. I would have rather them be more subtle about it, but it doesn't ruin anything for me. This fight also has my favorite moment in Volume 5, and that's when Issei pulls out his Divine Dividing. This moment had me so hyped. I'm so glad he was actually able to use it. It was a good moment, and it really gets the reader on the edge of their seats. Because while Saji was firing that blast, I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought Konako was going to step in front of it, but I'm glad they did that instead. That's way better. I'm also glad they explained why Issei doesn't use his Divine Dividing later. It shaves off his lifespan every time he uses it. I don't know why they would leave this out in the anime. That's such a bad thing to leave out. Like, that's an important detail that they should talk about in the anime, but they just decided to leave it out for some reason. It's kind of crazy because it only takes like 5 seconds to add a line about Divine Dividing. They just really needed to do a better job at explaining things in the anime. We also get to see Konako's actual power in this battle, and she completely destroys Sona's pawn, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Usually Konako's one of the first people taken out in these fights, but because she unlocked her new power, it's best that she survives until the end, and that's exactly what they did. I do wish that they would have showed maybe one more fight with her, but in the fight that she was in, she still looked really good. I just wanted to see a little bit more. The Saji fight was definitely my favorite, but there are still other moments that I really liked. The fight with Kiba, Zenobia, Tsubaki, Yura, and Meguri was also very enjoyable. I love the reaction the characters have to Gasper getting taken out. It just shows the difference in characters. Kiba hides his emotion and stays calm while it happens, but underneath he was really mad about Gasper being defeated. While Zenobia was the complete opposite. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She was giving off a dreadful aura. This also matches perfectly well with their fighter types. Kiba is a technique fighter, so it makes a lot more sense that he would try to stay calm, while Zenobia is a power type fighter, so of course she would try to use her emotions to get more power. They just do a really good job at connecting things in this volume. This whole moment also shows how connected the Grimmery family is. They all care so much about each other, and this is a good scene to show that. Gasper doesn't die or anything, but they still hate to see him lose. Even Zenobia, she hasn't even been here for that long, but even she is upset when he loses. It's just a really good way to show that connection that they have. The reverse move that they use throughout this rating game is so broken, and honestly it kind of feels like a cop-out for a lot of Sona's pieces. A lot of them get saved by that move. I'm definitely glad they were talking about banning it because it just felt too broken for this fight. Tsubaki's Mirror Alice was done a lot better in this volume 2 than in the anime, and again I love how it points back to the advice Azazel gave to Zenobia. He warned her about fighting against counter-type fighters. It just shows how useful Azazel is to the team. He just knows so much. And again, they do a really good job at connecting things together. Kiba's talk about wanting to be like Issei was something I really liked too. Again, it shows how important Issei is to the group and how much he affects everyone. It's just also nice seeing Kiba get some actual screen time or page time. So far in the light novel, Kiba has been one of my favorite characters. I actually like him more than characters like Asuya, Zenobia, and maybe even Akano. The Durandal birth moment was also really good. It was one of my favorite moments by far. And I really love the direction they're going with Kiba and Zenobia's relationship. They have so much chemistry with each other, and I hope they keep that up. They fight so well together, and they're definitely my favorite duo when it comes to fighting. Kiba during this entire rating game was my favorite character. He does so much, and he honestly impressed me more than Saji did. I know that's crazy to say, but that's just how I feel. Now we're at the final battle scene. This whole final battle just shows how smart Sona is. Her plan of draining Issei's blood because he's human and he needs blood to function is done so well. It's simple but super effective, and it makes sense because like she said, Issei isn't going to go down without a fight, and he might not go down at all. So you have to think of other ways that you can beat him. And like I said earlier, Sona comes off as super strong without having to fight. We also get to see how much Sona cares about Saji. She made it known that Saji was the one that defeated Issei, and I really like that moment too. This is also the first time we get to see Issei's booby lingual, and it creates a little funny moment. That's also something the entire light novel is very good at. It's actually funny, and it makes me laugh, so they do comedy really well in the light novel. Asuya gets done dirty in this fight though. She goes to use her new power, but then it gets reversed, and she ends up taking herself out of the fight. That reverse move is just so broken, and I honestly feel bad for Asia because she was about to use her new technique, but she didn't get to. Akino's reaction to Issei's retirement was also a very good moment. She was actually mad that Issei didn't get to see her use her true power. And we also finally get to see Akino doing something in a raiding game. Now I will say this, I do wish they would have taken the Akino and Konoko thing one at a time. They're trying to do both at the same time, and I think it would have been better if they saved Akino's for a little bit later. It's just not a good idea to do both at the same time because I really think Konoko's power completely overshadows Akino's. And that's mainly because we had a whole arc dedicated to just Konoko. So of course her power is going to overshadow Akino's. It's just kind of weird when you have a scene like the one in the bookstore. You have Konoko and Akino doing like the exact same thing. I think that's just kind of weird. And they would have been better off just doing it with Konoko. But the scene where Akino uses her power is actually still really good. I do expect them to do more with Akino. But this Akino moment again just shows how important Issei is to everyone. I'm glad they hammered that idea into your head because it really needs to be there. The reader has to understand that Issei is the most important character, and this is just an easy way to get that through their head. We also see my second favorite moment in the volume when Kiba pulls Durandal against Tsubaki. I really like this moment so much because I didn't expect it, and Kiba gets so much love during this raiding game. It's just hard not to like this moment. There isn't a single moment where Kiba looks weak. Kiba really impressed me the most during this game, and I'm so glad he did because I always have loved Kiba's character. He just has so much heart and he does so much for the team, so I'm glad he has these moments where he's not in Issei's shadow. We also get to find out why Kiba's so motivated during this raiding game. He's actually mortified that he couldn't help during the Riser, Kokeville, or Wally fights. He just felt useless, so we get to see a different level of motivation from Kiba. Kiba post Kokeville fight truly is something special. He's a different breed after that fight. Kiba defeating Tsubaki just adds to his impressiveness too. Tsubaki threw everything at him and he just kept beating her, kept outsmarting her. Kiba really was something special in this fight. The final fight between Rias and Sona was actually underwhelming. It's only 3 pages long and it ends with Sona resigning. I really wish they would have made the fight longer. Like, I really wanted to see Rias and Sona throw hands. And I also just wanted to see more of Rias' power because we don't really get to see too much of it. But other than that, I really liked this raiding game. After the battle, they gave the MVP trophy to Saji. He deserved it, but I'm giving that to Kiba every single time. I'm sorry. But of course, I get why they gave it to Saji. I also really like the end when Issei acknowledges Saji as his rival. It just makes me want to see more of those two. And then of course, they end the volume going into the Diodora arc, which I might talk about depending on how it goes. Overall, I think this is the best volume of High School DxD I've read so far. My favorite character from this volume was probably Kiba, and my favorite part was definitely the raiding game. I honestly can't believe they left this out of the anime. They really fumbled the bag when they did that. Anyways, this is going to be a long video, so I'm going to make the outro short. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.